In video 7, we're going to look at parenting and child layers, or the parent and child layers. And parenting allows one to synchronize channels to layers by assigning one layer to transform, to another layer. So, with all these, and I'm pulling up, even though I'm using a null object, which a null object kind of creates, and this is the null object here. It's kind of an invisible layer, but I'm using all of these layers as children, and I'm parenting them to this null object. So if I move, and I'll kind of just play through to kind of show you, and this is called kinetic typography. So within text, um, you can kind of let's go ahead and run RAM preview. It'll render out because there's kind of quite a few. But really, every movement that's happening is being created by the null object. So I'm just moving the null object, which all of these text layers are separate, but I've parented them to the null object. So I'm going to show you how that's done, but kind of showing how it's done. And I'm sure you've seen this used in multiple commercials. I think the Ford commercial uses it quite a bit. But with this, so anytime I move, and let me just go to the end. Okay, so just by creating this null object, if I move it, okay, I'm moving all of that. So it's a nice way to say, hey, I want to have this all connected. So let me go ahead and I'm going to create a new composition, and I'm just going to call this parenting. And we'll call this, and so I might create a new, let's create a shape layer. And again, man, you know what? I did the way I don't like to do it, so I'm going to take that away. I want to create an actual shape layer so I don't have to create the content, but just create a content. So I'm going to create this shape right here, and I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to create a rectangle shape. Okay, and so, and I'm just going to change the color to make it look a little bit different visually. We'll take it up, make it red, bam. Okay, so the thing is, notice that I can't do anything right now because these are on the same layer. All right, but if I were to go, hey, let's take and create another shape, and let's do a star shape this time. And I'm going to create it and let's make it bluish. That's good. So I want to kind of figure out, and the parenting, the trick is to figure out, okay, what's the movement going? So right now I'm doing something I always tell you guys to not do, is to brainstorm. I really don't have a plan. I'm just kind of playing around right now. So maybe as I move this along here, I kind of want these guys to move along as well. So let's do this shape layer. I'm going to create a path, and I'll start. Let's go ahead and position, create a keyframe, move it 1 second, shift, move this down, and then at 2 seconds, I'll move this. Oh, go ahead and move it up. Okay, so now I've got this little bit of movement that's doing that. Now, maybe I like that shape or that movement, and I want to create, and just to stay in good terms, this is the circle and rec. Okay, it's the rectangle. I'm going to say, you know what? I want to take this and parent that to that star layer. And this is called your pick whip. So if I take this, I can drag that and say, hey, I want you to be parented to this. You can also, if you want to, select by saying this over here and say shape layer. So now as I move that, see how they all move together? So this is a nice way. Again, you're going to have to think about brainstorming, how do I want to move it? And there are ways to disconnect, but you're going to say, okay, once you parent, take a child and parent it, or pair it up with its parent, the child, you can't pair it up with another layer. So I could, if I want, create another layer, and let's just call this text, and text. I know I'm very basic when it comes to showing you examples, but now I can take this text layer, and if I wanted to, I could parent it up to the circle and the other thing. But because it's parented to the other one, it's obviously going to stay with the same, so I could say, hey, just go to that shape layer 2, which is the star. So it's kind of a quick way to show, different ways, or to get different movement. And like I said, with the kinetic typography example, that works well with that null object. And that's just another layer. So if I said, instead of parenting these all to each other, I could say no, no, no parents, but I do want to create a null object layer. And now what I could do is I could take these and I'll take that, shift click so they're all selected, pick whip that to the null area. Now they're all to the null area. And with that null object, if I create, let's just say scale. So I bring up the scale. Anytime I do that all together, it's going to move them all because they're all parented to that one layer. So I could do that, or let's go ahead and maybe rotation. I could rotate them together. So it's kind of it will help you when you again have certain movements that you want to do all the same things to one layer. So if I were to, and this is probably the best example, so let me go ahead and I'm going to delete the circle and the rectangle layer. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the null object layer, and I'm going to take this shape, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want it to be, and let's go ahead and delete all the keyframes. So I deleted the keyframes. Or actually, no, let's not delete the keyframes. Let's reuse those keyframes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair up the text right here on the side, and I'm going to say, okay, let's pair you to shape layer 2. So as I go through shape layer 2, I've already connected that text to that star. So maybe with this star layer, see as I scale it, it's the same. So maybe I create a really elaborate animated move that I'm like, God, I don't want to repeat that, but I want to do this for that same thing. Bam. You can just pair it in and say, yep, okay, you're going to be just doing the same thing that other layer is doing. Just follow along, follow the path or follow the leader. So that's a really quick way to show the parenting or take a child layer and parent it to its or pair it up to its parent. So that's a fun way. Again, playing around, figuring out, brainstorming, movement, how can I parent this or take this layer and parent it to another. That's what you'll be doing, especially when we go into our midterm and creating the lower thirds and moving stuff together.